Chapter 1 of The Diamond Master by Jacques Futrelle. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read for you today by Dawn Larson in Minnesota. The Diamond Master by Jacques Futrelle, Chapter 1. The First Diamond. There were 30 or 40 personally addressed letters, the daily heritage of the head of a great business establishment, and a plain yellow-wrapped package about the size of a cigarette box, some 3 inches long, 2 inches wide, and 1 inch deep. It was neatly tied with thin scarlet twine, and innocent of markings except for the superscription in a precise copperplate hand, and the smudge of the postmark across the 10-cent stamp in the upper right-hand corner. The imprint of the cancellation, faintly decipherable, showed that the package had been mailed at the Madison Square substation at 7:30 of the previous evening. Mr. Harry Latham, president and active head of the H. Latham Company, manufacturing jewelers in Fifth Avenue, found the letters and the package on his desk when he entered his private office a few minutes past 9 o'clock. The simple fact that the package bore no return address or identifying mark of any sort caused him to pick it up and examine it, after which he shook it inquiringly. Then, with kindling curiosity, he snipped the scarlet thread with a pair of silver scissors, and unfolded the wrappings. Inside was a glazed paper box, such as jewelers use, but still there was no mark, no printing, either on top or bottom. The cover of the box came off in Mr. Latham's hand, disclosing a bed of white cotton. He removed the downy upper layer, and there, nestled against the snowy background, blazed a single splendid diamond of 6, perhaps 7 carats. Myriad colors played in its blue-white depths, sparkling, flashing, dazzling in the subdued light. Mr. Latham drew one long, quick breath, and walked over to the window to examine the stone in the full glare of day. A minute or more passed, a minute of wonder, admiration, allurement, but at last he ventured to lift the diamond from the box. It was perfect, so far as he could see, perfect in cutting and color and depth, prismatic, radiant, bewilderingly gorgeous. Its value? Even he could not offer an opinion. Only the appraisement of his expert would be worth listening to on that point. But one thing he knew instantly: in the $1,000,000 stock of precious stones stored away in the vaults of H. Latham Company, there was not one to compare with this. At length, as he stared at it fascinated, he remembered that he didn't know its owner, and for the second time he examined the wrappings, the box inside and out, and finally he lifted out the lower layer of cotton, seeking a fugitive card or mark of some sort. Surely the owner of so valuable a stone would not be so careless as to send it this way, through the mail, unregistered, without some method of identification. Another sharp scrutiny of the box and cotton and wrappings left him in deep perplexity. Then another idea came. One of the letters, of course! The owner of the diamond had sent it this way, perhaps to be set, and had sent instructions under another cover. An absurd, even a reckless thing to do, but— And Mr. Latham attacked the heap of letters neatly stacked up in front of him. There were 36 of them, but not one even remotely hinted at diamonds. In order to be perfectly sure, Mr. Latham went through his mail a second time. Perhaps the letter of instructions had come addressed to the company and had gone to the secretary, Mr. Flitcroft. He arose to summon Mr. Flitcroft from an adjoining room, then changed his mind long enough carefully to replace the diamond in the box, and thrust the box into a pigeonhole of his desk. Then he called Mr. Flitcroft in. "Have you gone through your morning mail?" Mr. Latham inquired of the secretary. "Yes," he replied, "I have just finished." "Did you happen to come across a letter bearing on—that is, was there a letter today, or has there been a letter of instructions as to a single large diamond which was to come or had come by mail?" "No, nothing," replied Mr. Flitcroft promptly. "The only letter received to day which referred to diamonds was a notification of a shipment from South Africa." Mr. Latham thoughtfully drummed on his desk. "Well, I'm expecting some such letter," he explained. "When it comes, please call it to my attention. Send my stenographer in." Mr. Flitcroft nodded and withdrew, and for an hour or more Mr. Latham was engrossed in the routine of correspondence. There was only an occasional glance at the box in the pigeon hole, and momentary fits of abstraction, to indicate an unabated interest and growing curiosity in the diamond. The last letter was finished, and the stenographer rose to leave. "Please ask Mr. Czenki to come here," Mr. Latham directed. And after a while Mr. Czenki appeared. He was a spare little man with beady black eyes, bushy brows, and a sinister scar extending from the point of his chin across the right jaw. Mr. Czenki drew a salary of $25,000 a year from the H. Latham Company, and was worth twice that much. He was the diamond expert of the firm, and for 5 or 6 years his had been the final word as to quality and value. He had been a laborer in the South African diamond mines. The scar was an assegai thrust, about the time Cecil Rhodes's grip was first felt there. Later he was employed as an expert by Barney Barnato at Kimberley, and finally he went to London with Adolph Zeet. Mr. Latham nodded as he entered, and took the box from the pigeon hole. "Here's something I'd like you to look at," he remarked. Mr. Czenki removed the cover and turned the glittering stone out into his hand. For a minute or more he stood still examining it, as he turned and twisted it in his fingers, then walked over to a window, adjusted a magnifying glass in his left eye, and continued the scrutiny. Mr. Latham swung around in his chair and stared at him intently. "It's the most perfect blue white I've ever seen," the expert announced at last. "I dare say it's the most perfect in the world." Mr. Latham arose suddenly and strode over to Mr. Czenki, who was twisting the jewel in his fingers, singling out, dissecting, studying the colorful flashes, measuring the facets with practiced eyes, weighing it on his finger tips, seeking a possible flaw. "The cutting is very fine," the expert went on. "Of course I would have to use instruments to tell me if it is mathematically correct, and the weight, I imagine, is about 6 carats, perhaps a fraction more." "What's it worth?" asked Mr. Latham. "Approximately, I mean." "We know the color is perfect," explained Mr. Czenki precisely. "If, in addition, the cutting is perfect, and the depth is right, and the weight is 6 carats or a fraction more, it's worth, in other words, if that is the most perfect specimen in existence, as it seems to be, it's worth whatever you might choose to demand for it. $20, $25, $30,000. With this color, and assuming it to be 6 carats, even if badly cut, it would be worth 10 or 12,000." Mr. Latham mopped his brow. And this had come by mail, unregistered. "It would not be possible to say where such a stone came from, what country?" Mr. Latham inquired curiously. "What's your opinion?" The expert shook his head. "If I had to guess I should say Brazil, of course," he replied. "But that would be merely because the most perfect blue white diamonds come from Brazil. They are found all over the world, in Africa, Russia, India, China, even in the United States. The simple fact that this color is perfect makes a conjecture useless." Mr. Latham lapsed into silence, and for a time paced back and forth across his office. Mr. Czenki stood waiting. "Please get the exact weight," Mr. Latham requested abruptly. "Also test the cutting. It came into my possession in rather an unusual manner, and I'm curious." The expert went out. An hour later he returned and placed the white glazed box on the desk before Mr. Latham. "The weight is 6 3/16 carats," he stated. The depth is absolutely perfect according to the diameter of the girdle. The bezel facets are mathematically correct to the minutest fraction, 33, including the table. The facets on the collet side are equally exact, 25 including the collet, or 58 facets in all. As I said, the color is flawless. In other words," he continued without hesitation, "I should say, speaking as an expert, that it is the most perfect diamond existing in the world to day." Mr. Latham had been staring at him mutely, and he still sat silent for an instant after Mr. Czenki had finished. "And its value?" he asked at last. "Its value?" Mr. Czenki repeated musingly. "You know, Mr. Latham," he went on suddenly, "there are 100 experts commissioned by royalty scouring the diamond markets of the world for such stones as this. So if you are looking for a sale and a price, by all means offer it abroad first." He lifted the sparkling iridescent jewel from the box again, and gazed at it reflectively. "There is not one stone belonging to the British Crown, for instance, which would in any way compare with this." "Not even the Koh i Noor?" Mr. Latham demanded, surprised. Mr. Czenki shook his head. "Not even the Koh i Noor. It is larger, that's all, a fraction more than 106 carats, but it has neither the coloring nor the cutting of this." There was a pause. "Would it be impertinent if I asked who owns this?" "I don't know," replied Mr. Latham slowly. "I don't know, but it isn't ours. Perhaps later I'll be able to " "I beg your pardon," the expert interrupted courteously, and there was a slight expression of surprise on his thin, scarred face. "Is that all?" Mr. Latham nodded absently, and Mr. Czenki left the room. CHAPTER II.